Hello everyone and welcome back to Fanboy Radio. I'm going to go ahead and give my review of Attack on Titan chapter 124. I just posted the video of my first reaction to the chapter, and while taking notes for that video, I just took a lot of point-by-point notes which I didn't use, so I'm just going to use that for the review. I probably won't be doing reviews on manga chapters in the future, not point by point at least, but since we're here, we might as well just go over it. So first I'll just go over the bad beats, what I disliked, then I'll go over the confusing beats and what I thought was unclear and what I thought shouldn't be left unclear in this chapter, because sometimes it's good to have unclear things, and then other times, we're so late into the story, it's not good to have so many unclear things. And then I'll just go over the good beats on the stuff that I did like, which is a pretty decent amount. So I guess we'll just start from the top. On the bad beats, I thought this chapter had a pretty false lead-in. We start with the Eldians and Marley in the paths, experiencing the paths, and I thought initially that we were going to see their reaction to, obviously, Aaron's voice in their head, what the path was, and the rumbling and what that meant for them. So I thought we were going to see a kind of widespread panic from the Eldians, and then them telling the Marleyans that the rumbling was coming, yada, yada, yada. But we didn't get any of that, so it just felt weird to have that as the first chapter. And then, if you, by now, if you've read the chapter, if you're listening to this, you probably should have read the chapter. But if you did, you know that the only real 2 pages about Annie were the first and last one. So in my opinion, if you're gonna have those pages, you might as well just stick those into the next chapter if that chapter has to do with Annie, because this chapter had nothing to do with Annie, but we get that as the introduction. So I thought that was just very weird. Sorry, I'm looking over my notes right now. But yeah, if we have Annie's dad as the introduction, we should just have more of him and more of Annie. So I just thought it was a weird lead-in. My next bad beat is that Gabby's alive. I'm not particularly a Gabby hater like a lot of people are. I think she's an okay character. I see what her use is in the story to kind of have the juxtaposition between her, maybe not juxtaposition, but parallel between her and Eren. 2 people who fight what they believe in on different sides of an issue, and her kind of discovering what it means to be good or evil or right or wrong. But she was right next to Eren and Zeke when Eren turned into the Founding Titan, or I don't even know what we're calling it, Eren's final form, or Emir Titan, or whatever people are calling it. But she was right there. If that didn't cause an explosion, she was what? I'm going to say 15 to 30 feet away from Eren. If his transformation didn't cause an explosion, I guess she could still be alive, but if it did, I feel like she should have at least gotten injured from the explosion alone. Not only that, we see Reiner protect her, but in the shot, it's not drawn very well, and at least in my opinion, because it looks like they're just pebbles or very limited rubble from the wall falling onto Reiner, like something he could easily handle, but we know how big those walls are, and we know how close they were to the walls when they came down. So it just seems unlikely that maybe Reiner, if he stayed in his Titan form, could have survived all of that rubble. But having Gabby survive and having Reiner lose his armor and protecting her, it just doesn't seem. I don't know. It was maybe because it was drawn poorly, or we didn't get enough of that scene. But it just seemed kind of weird, kind of like plot armor for Gabby. And then also on the point of Reiner, this guy needs to stop being so sad. He's always he's been like, I get it. I get his position is difficult, but since the beginning of the time skip, he's been kind of depressed, and I mean, that's understandable. But it's so late in the story that his character isn't really progressing in any type of fashion, and so, and then also we get to see him say, "I couldn't prevent it." Well, at least this is the translation that I read. "I couldn't prevent it. The world is going to be destroyed by Eren." And you see him kind of like being upset about the rumbling, and then being depressed about it. But I mean, Reiner, come on, like, this was largely in part your fault, my dude. Like, you are part of the original 3 people who infiltrated Paradise Island and caused all this in the first place. So, I mean, you can be depressed by the fact that Marley is probably going to be like destroyed, but take some credit at least. Stop being so depressed and like complaining and not really doing anything for the story, because it's your fault. And yeah, I don't know. It seems like his character isn't really doing anything or hasn't been doing anything. I know he fought Eren just a little while ago, but as of this point, like, we leave off with him just taking a nap in some random place. It's just, yeah. Yeah, I don't like what they're doing with Reiner. Hopefully, he'll get a more satisfactory end. Something that'll, that we, the audience, will kind of appreciate the way he goes out, because I don't think he should be alive by the end of this story. He's just done so much, and he doesn't even want to be alive, so it just feels weird to have him, even in this chapter, just alive and taking a nap while all this stuff is going on and just being depressed. It just felt so strange. Another bad beat is once we see Connie and John take Falco. Like, what side of Connie is this where he's going to snatch Falco away from Armin, Mikasa, John before they talk it over so that he can go sacrifice Falco to save his mom? Like, I get it, like, that's a good point, but Falco is, obviously Falco's a kid, and he hasn't really done anything wrong in this story as far as I can remember. And I mean, even if he did, he's still a kid. And it was just really quick of Connie to make that move. And I get it, it's his mom, but it just doesn't seem like something Connie would do without hesitating over. Maybe that's his own growth, but it just seems weird to have one of our main characters who hasn't shown kind of like a Sidious side to himself go and steal Falco that quick to sacrifice him. It just felt weird. I'm looking over my notes here. We see Floch in this chapter again, and I just feel like he's so unnecessary to the story. Like, him saving Erwin when they were fighting the Beast Titan originally, and him having an outsider's view of like just being a normal guy in the survey corps. Like, core, I thought that was good, but his reintroduction to being part of the I forget the name, the Eren extremists or Eren fraction or Eren fanboys or whatever they're called. Him being part of that, and then now him having some role in arresting Yelena, it just seems so unnecessary. Like, his existence is just like a plot device, and he has no real intrinsic value. So it feels weird to have him there. Another bad beat is I really don't want Annie to play a role in stopping Eren, because let's say first off, it feels weird that we're having this chapter go over these characters right after Eren starts the rumbling, but I don't really see. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. I don't see how she could play a crucial role in this story at this point. I really hope she doesn't like team up with Reiner or Armin or something like that to stop Eren. It just feels so last minute to have her introduced or reintroduced to the story. I mean, I hope she does have a good, like a role that makes sense in the story, but I just don't think her being like crystallized for years and then coming back into the story just to have some like last minute retcon for stopping Eren just feels so bad. So yeah, that's just weird. Now on to the confusing beats. Where's Zeke? And I said this in the previous video. I just don't understand how we can take this chapter to like take a pause from all the action and go over our main characters to not go over what happened to Zeke. I mean, he was right next. All the last few chapters leading up to this chapter, he was a pivotal role in playing like the, I guess, quote unquote bad guy or antithesis to Eren. So to have him not even like have an appearance in this chapter when he was right next to Eren, right next to the walls when they broke, it seems weird. Like, did he get crushed? Or is he is he just sitting there depressed like Reiner? Like, what happened to Zeke? Like, don't have him play such a big role and then the next chapter he's not even seen or we don't even know anything about him. It just, or what happens to him, it just feels weird and confusing. Like, where is he? Another confusing beat is, why isn't Eren controlling the mindless titans? And I guess this goes back to our question that we've all been asking for a while. Is like, what's the extent of the founding titans' powers? So does Eren have those powers? This is a weird question that I've only thought about when I read this chapter. Does he have the powers of the founding titan at this moment, or did he only have them when he came into contact with Zeke? Then he created, then he helped to create the rumbling. But now since he's not in contact with Zeke anymore, does he just not have those powers? Because he's not controlling the mindless titan, so it just feels weird to have that be unclear in this chapter. Maybe we can infer it like I just did, but I would have preferred if we had a direct answer to that question. And also, is he the one who's causing the rumbling currently? Like, is he in control of the Wall Titans, or is it the will of Ymir to do that? Because we see in the last chapter, we see Eren telling Ymir, it's your choice. It's up to you to decide what's going to happen. You're not a slave, you're a person. You're not a slave, you're not a god, you're a person. Make the choice. So it's kind of, we see Eren kind of do his little speech at the end of the last chapter. So you think that he's in control, but he's taken on this form of this weird bone spine giant founding titan. So I'm wondering if it's Ymir's will that's pushing him forward. Because if that's the case, then I can understand why he's not doing anything about the mindless titans, because then it would just be Ymir trying to cause the rumbling. Like, she wouldn't care about the mindless titans. So I think that ought to be explained. I'm pretty sure Eren's in control, but it just seems weird that we don't know the extent of his powers. Like, and obviously all of our main characters wouldn't know, but it would be easy for Isayama to put in a monologue for Eren, like an inner monologue of what he's trying to do as he's walking away. He's like, maybe he's thinking, oh, I've got to concentrate on the rumbling, I can't concentrate on controlling the mindless titans or something like that. But it was just confusing what his powers are. On the next confusing bit, Elena says, why isn't Zeke controlling the Titans? That's a pretty good question. So we have to ask, is Zeke dead? That's the first question, but obviously if he's dead, he wouldn't be controlling the mindless titans. The next question is, if he's alive, why isn't he controlling the mindless titans? Maybe that's because he's kind of lost his purpose because his plan failed, but I guess we won't know because those mindless titans were kind of wiped out in this chapter. So it was just kind of weird to again, not have the whereabouts of Zeke clarified and what his status is, especially when we factor in the mindless titans that he created. Another confusing bit was, how long did it take to kill the mindless titans? In that shot, after we see our main characters help kill all the mindless titans with the, thunder spears, so forth and so forth, and they say most of the titans are wiped out, the fires are settling, we still see the wall titans in pretty close proximity to them from where they were before. It doesn't seem to me like they've walked or traveled pretty far. But it seems like a decent amount of time has passed since the rumbling began and since the end of them destroying the mindless titans. So how much time has passed? How slow are the wall titans walking? Has it been like 30 minutes or an hour? Then maybe I can understand. But if it's been a few hours by the time they got rid of all the mindless titans, I feel like the wall titans should be way further away. So that was confusing. Gabby posed an interesting question. She said, can't the founding titan turn mindless titans back into normal people? That's a good question. We don't know. I guess the story hasn't really allowed for that to be explained yet, because, King Fritz, when he created the 3 walls, he wanted to control his people and keep them ignorant. So it would make sense for him to just leave the mindless titans outside of the walls to keep, obviously, the Eldians inside the walls. So even if the Marleyans create mindless titans and send them towards the wall, we wouldn't know if King Fritz had, or the founding titan has the power to turn those people back into humans, because ever since the walls were created, their founding titan has been in the hands of someone who wants those titans to stay there to keep the people in check. So that's confusing. That still kind of needs to be answered, which is a pretty big question since the start of the series, but we still don't have the answer to it. So another confusing beat is, does Armin love Annie? Hold up. Alright, yeah, so does Armin love Annie, or does he have a crush on her? I mean, they didn't seem that close when she was around. They had their moments, but not too much. But we know that Bertolt was, had a thing for Annie. And since Armin ate Bertolt, does that transfer over into Armin? So, I could get it if he has a crush, that's fine. But for him to, be in love with Annie, I feel like that needs to be further explained or expanded upon, because it just seems weird for him to drop everything and be concerned about Annie at this moment in time when the rumbling's going on, when Connie's got Falco, when yada yada yada. It's just so strange. So I feel like that, hopefully that gets clarified, whether he loves her or if it's just a crush, or I don't know. But it was still confusing in this chapter. Another confusing beat is, did Annie age while she was crystallized? Because, I'm judging it off the growth of her hair, which doesn't seem to be like any. But if she crystallized herself, could her hair grow in that condition in the first place? So she's still whatever age she was physically before she went into before she crystallized, or is she older now? So does that mean her time limit for having the female Titan power, did that go on pause while she was crystallized, or does it keep counting down either way, even though she kind of really didn't age? I don't know. That's very strange. It's kind of like a I don't know. Just she kind of paused her life, and we don't really have the physical explanation of if she aged or if the time limit is kept going on, or I don't know. So yeah, that was confusing. But now, after the bad beats and confusing beats, we can get to the good beats. One good beat that I really liked was that John and Connie were on top of taking Falco away. In all the chaos, they see Falco obviously transformed and eat Porco. Hope that's saying his name right. Porco, and turn into an intelligent Titan. I'm glad that they were quick to make the decision to take him and then to get away from the area, because we see them in the past kind of hesitate to do those kind of things, but it was just good to see them do that quick and efficiently so we don't have to, worry about it. I also like that the main characters are questioning Aaron's decision for the rumbling. John is basically saying, yeah, Aaron did all that for them. Everything he sacrificed, he's done for them, and that they're the ones that benefit from the rumbling. But then Armin brings up that even if that's true, there's still kind of an unprecedented genocide that's about to happen. So it's nice just to see them being confused on this issue. So we still know that they're kind of the heroes that we can root for in the story, who have that kind of moral compass to say, oh wait, this is wrong, even though something's helping them. So I'm glad that they put that in there, that our characters are still confused about how they should feel on what's going on. Another thing good that I liked was that Gabby actually did something useful by saving Kaya. Congratulations. All the Gabby haters out there can take a break and just give her at least a tiny bit of praise, maybe, for saving Kaya and just going out of her way to do the right thing. So I'm glad we're getting more to Gabby's character arc. On that note, another thing I liked was that Gabby, Kaya, and Nicola are talking about every single person in existence has the devil inside of them. They have some kind of bad impulse, anger, regret, hatred. Those kind of things that push us to do bad things in our lives or something that we regret. Everyone has that and can be perceived as bad in some light. And I guess that's a pretty big theme of Attack on Titan as a whole. I mean, it was kind of on the nose how they were talking about it, because you can just infer that anyway from seeing the two different sides of the Eldians and the Marleyans and so forth and so forth. But I'm glad that they just put that in there as a kind of a period to the end of the sentence that they posed about what the main theme of the story was. So I'm just glad that was in there. I'm glad Shadis is back. Yeah, I'm glad he, even after getting the snot kicked out of him, he's back and helping. And because I just thought it would have been such a kind of kick to the nuts for him to, get cucked by Grisha for Carla, and then to lose his position as the leader of the Survey Corps, and then for him to get beat up by all these Jaeger extremists or whatever they're called. So it was just good to see him come back and have a moment where he helped out and did something really impressive. So I'm just glad they left, they put that, Isayama put that in there. Otherwise, yeah, his character would have been really, really tragic and depressing. I'm also glad that the Eldians have become efficient at killing the Titans. I mean, from the first looks of it, when they look around, they see that the Marleyan soldiers have gotten eaten by the mindless Titans. It seems kind of like a bad situation, but they pull it together pretty quickly. So I'm glad that after all this time, at the end of the story, they can take care of mindless Titans like beat for beat without too many casualties, and it's refreshing to know that they at least have that progress in the story. Another good beat, which is in the previous video to this, I thought that I suggested that it might be a bad thing to have the momentum of Attack on Titan be like stopped with this chapter, but it's also good. It could be good for Isayama to just take his time and to address all these kind of loose ends in the story and our different characters and what they have going on, instead of just focusing on Eren and the Rumbling. Because typically animes and manga, they push through the big final act to the conclusion without going over all of the different loose ends and questions. But Isayama's taking his time, and so while I'm not too sure about it, I still think that it could be a good thing to have us take a step back from the Rumbling just to kind of regroup and make sure the story's solid and all tied up. Even though we're bringing up stuff like Connie's mom at the last minute, if people want to know what happens to Connie's mom, I guess congratulations to them. But it's nice to have, just to know that Isayama's trying to tie up those loose ends and make sure the story ends off right. So yeah, that's it for my review. I'm still not too sure about how this chapter will affect how we view the end of the story. I mean, it was okay for what it was. I just hope that next chapter we get some questions to kind of these confusing beats that I mentioned, and Isayama's able to tie up all these little loose ends like Levi, Hanji, Zeke, Pieck, Connie's mom, Gabby, Falco, so forth, and do it in a way that's satisfactory to the story and helps push the story along. But that's it for me. If you've listened this far, thank you for listening. Check out the last video on my initial reaction to the chapter and how I thought it was weird that this type of chapter was placed shortly after the climax of the story. But check that out if you want. I'll come out with more videos about One Piece, My Hero Academia, Psycho Pass. If you guys haven't watched Psycho Pass, watch it. Subscribe if you like this kind of content. If you have any criticisms or any opinions, just leave it in the comments. I'll be sure to read them. So yep, thank you all for listening, and I'll have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Bye.